Maybe this works. I'm like, come on, come on, come on. It's going to work. It's definitely going to work. We're going to get all of our hosts back. Working now. It works now. It works. Let's go. Okay. So this is an example of just like, playing it by ear, figuring it out as well. Okay, so I'm not gonna repeat everything I said in the beginning, but just to kind of call all of y'all attention while the hosts come back, there is a button below my screen with all the links that you need. And then we're here, we're doing this. So I'm gonna give it back to our lovely hosts to share their screen again. For any of us that are not on stage, we can hop into the wing. And then it should work. Should be good.
Do we have slides? Do we see them?
We do.
Awesome.
All right, I'm gonna give us a couple minutes here just because I see some people are still reloading and coming back in. Oh, Amy, did you see they're like, why did I think they would be older?
We're very old. We're actually, we look young for our age.
Mm-hmm. We have that Piaget's emotional maturity.
Mom! She's not here.
Who is that?
Blooper.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Okay, one of y'all just like start from the beginning, start over, and take us through.
Yep. All right. All right, welcome
We'll
back.
talk about this later for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Mom is an AP psychologist enthusiast. All right. Unit 1, Scientific Foundations of Psychology. Starting again, that's 10 to 14% of your exam. Will show up a lot. So, historical influence. We have Wilhelm Wundt, Charles Darwin, Edward, and William. So each of them all have a different approach to psychology. A lot of them are, oh, and we got the rest of our hosts.
Yay.
All right. Everyone's back. All right. All right. Amy, where was I?
You were discussing the psychologist, I believe. You were at the second half of the page.
I have like Dory's fish brain. All right. Wilhelm Wundt, some know him as the father of psychology. He also had the first lab. Charles Darwin, evolution by natural selection. So think evolutionary psychology approach. Edward, structuralism. So elements of like processing, thoughts, emotions. William James, functionalism. So that's human thoughts, emotions, and behavior. And Jenna's back. All right, everyone.
I didn't mean to come on live. Bye.
Rocky start, but I promise it's gonna be good.
She's in one of our historical influences. She's one of the people.
Yes. It is true. All right, so moving on, we got our focus in. So we have the psychodynamic approach, and I kind of like to use my thumb and I like move it back here because I'm like, oh, it's like past experiences, and I'm like doing this while I'm like taking a test. But Sigmund Freud, it's like the unconscious, early life influences, traumas, unresolved trauma, and it utilizes this idea of free association. And then we have humanism. So we have Maslow, Rogers, many, many more people focus in on the positive side of humanity, okay? And also think like personal growth, achievement, Harry Potter, Luke, from Star Wars. They all go through this like essentially really big trials, and they come out a better person or the best versions of themselves. And also emphasizes unconditional positive regard. So that's more on the side of if this is a psychologist working with you and they have a patient and they're like, okay, you're doing great. Also think humanism is the typical Netflix, like, and how does that make you feel? All right, now we have the biological approaches. So that's Descartes, Darwin, James, focuses kind of on how our genes, our neurotransmitter, our hormones, all of this stuff, you know, kind of work into psychology. And it also uses imaging techniques to investigate the brain. So we have, what is it? MRIs, EEGs, CAT scans. I also like to think of when you have the cat, you're petting it, but essentially it would be a brain instead. It's a terrible example, but it works for me.
It could help you remember another type of scan, the PET scan, because the cat is a pet.
Oh my god, look at us. We're genius right now. That's our one brain cell functioning. We're doing great. All right. We have next the evolutionary approach. Now I love this one. This is Darwin. This is that natural selection. It's the traits that have been passed down to us, you know, to help us survive through the generations. Also, kind of an example here would be your appendix. For any of you that have had appendicitis, I really hope you haven't, because that just sucks. But back way back when we were eating leaves off trees and we were, you know, painting on cave walls, we were using that to process our food, but now we don't need it and it gets in the way, so we have to remove it. Another way you can think about it is, oh, someone's appendix did burst. I am so sorry. Yeah, no, that had to be awful. That's awful. No. Think of it also with anxiety and fight or flight. It's this idea that when, I guess, you're taking a really stressful AP exam, for example, like I'm going to be taking A push, my fight or flight's going to kick in. I'm going to be like, oh my god, I'm not going to pass this. I'm going to be fine, and I'm going to want to run away. But I'm.
So with Bible, you have nothing to worry about. Don't worry.
Exactly. It's kind of making sure that, you know, you don't do anything. It's like warning you. It's your own warning that it's like, hey, you know, don't do that, because there's a potential you could get hurt. All right. So next we have the cognitive approach. So that's Piaget, a whole lot of other psychologists. Think of like Piaget's approaches and what was it, Amy? Help me remind me the actual term for like the childhood development and everything.
Childhood development, it's right on the tip of my tongue. Neurocognition, is that it? No.
You know what? What is it? It's like the four stages of like cognitive development theory.
Like pre-conventional and no, wait, sorry. Confusing theories right now. Brain fart.
You're doing great. It's like sensor motor intelligence, concrete operational thinking,
Right. Formal.
And then
last one.
Yeah, look at you.
My brain's coming through just a second.
Absolutely. You need a Hail Mary here. So this focuses on information processing. It identifies how humans detect, interpret, process, and remember information. And the cognitive approach kind of gets into a little bit more into, I forget which unit it is, but it's like the memory and encoding, unit 5, I believe. Yeah. All right. So we'll see that pop up more a little later. Next, we have behavioralism. So we have Watson, Skinner, Pablo. Think Pablo's dog experiment. This focus in here is like the impact of learning on observable behaviors, applications of conditioning techniques. I think operant conditioning versus classical conditioning. You know what? I'm getting yelled at in the backstage chat. Can you take over for me, Amy? Because I think
Yeah,
they're
of
asking
course.
about subtitles.
Okay, so should I expand on behaviorism? So classical versus operant conditioning. Basically, it's like classical, it's associating this, it deals with more biological responses, versus operant conditioning is associating this action with its consequences, whether good or bad. And you can use a lot of techniques in this, like reinforcement, punishment, and, yeah, that's basically the SparkNotes version of this. So there is Yoongi coming through for us, getting through the tech.
Sorry. I must.
So
I believe that's
I'll jump in just like
Sean.
slightly. And while we're talking, we skipped slides, but I was gonna just like riff off of the back one. So with behaviorism, what we're looking at is pretty much just learning. So learning from our environment. So how does our environment alter our behavior? Well, there's a couple of different ways, through operant conditioning or through classical conditioning or through things like observational learning, which we'll talk about later. But just as Amy pointed out, classical conditioning is that learning that comes through some type of like unconscious or physiological reaction, whereas operant conditioning is voluntary behavior. It's like the things that we actually choose to opt into based off of, how they're consequenced in our lives. So yeah, awesome job, Amy. And I think we don't have those captions yet. So I'm going to keep talking until they come through. We're working on it. Yeah, actually, I'm not going to keep talking until those come through. I lied. I'm not going to do that.
That's Jenna, the brains of
I wonder.
in here. The most influential.
I wonder if it's.
Forget it. Just keep going.
All right. I wonder if it's because we got to talk, but that's all right. Sorry, guys. I know.
We are the grandmas here. We don't know how to use technology.
I don't even know how to use my TV remote. Let's just be realistic here. I have no idea what's going on half the time. It's way too in depth. All right, moving back in. So we have the social cultural approach. Erikson, Piaget, a whole bunch of other people. The focus is this combination of social and cultural influences on thought, behavior, and it emphasizes this kind of cross-cultural research. And sometimes some of the things you can think maybe for social v cultural is like if we have huge influences. Let's think who's someone that's like Kim Kardashian or something, and she influences a lot of people into like clothing styles, right? You know what? We have a review packet. You can fill that out. You can also take notes as well. So to answer the question that just popped up on the screen, but yes, definitely. Let's see. Now we have the biopsychosocial approach, and this person. Oh my god!
Oh, it's working.
Oh my god! Okay. All right. That's so cool. All right. So look at how impressed I am about freaking subtitles. This is great. All right. So biopsychosocial approach. This is essentially my favorite because it combines a whole bunch of different ways to look at one problem or one scenario, and it makes sure you get all of the perspectives in there, so you can really get a deeper understanding. So this is focusing on combination of biological, psychological, and social influences of the person as a whole. again, think like maybe you have a little brother who's going through all these like hormonal changes. He's really, really moody all the time. And then maybe he's, has a group of friends outside of school that's influencing to say like, oh, his older sister, not cool. And so he's like slamming the door in your face. Kind of try to take all of those ideas and put it into understanding like this one person and why they do what they do.
My brother and a few.
I don't actually have a brother, but I hope that was accurate just from the things that I've seen. So,
Yes.
but who knows? Okay. All right, research methods. So study is a detailed analysis of a subject or a situation. Then we have a case study, which is a very detailed analysis of a specific person or community. The difference here is a study can be a whole bunch of people, while a case study normally focuses in on like just one individual. And it's usually the individual that is an outlier in a constant. So they might utilize a survey, which is a list of questions that extracts data from a particular group of people. Now, I want to challenge the chat here. I want them to tell us why a survey's data could be skewed. So, what do you think, Amy?
Well, I don't know if I should actually answer this question or not, but should we give them a moment or?
Yeah. Oh, we got a whole bunch of stuff coming in. Self-reliant data, Hawthorne effect, bias, liars, people lie, absolutely. Confounding variables.
What I know about surveys is that it's much easier to obtain. Like it's much easier a survey than a study, more inexpensive, but it is more prone to like all of these variables that they're mentioning in the chat.
Look, I'm going to tell you the likelihood that I'm going to do like true observational like research over just throwing out surveys, despite the bias we know about. We got to prep for it. We got to plan for it. But Amy's right. They are so much easier. It's the best way to collect data.
I feel like that just needs like that underlying, like this could be impacted by this, and this note. But yeah, these kiddos are smart. They know what's up. Precaution could be ineffective. I need to stick that on like the yellow stand-up signs, like caution, wet floor, something like that. All right, so
yes,
we got
new merch.
Experimental research. Merch. That's actually, you know what? That's funny. All right, so this experimental research, you got to focus on this because this is the one that it only requires a random assignment. And this is how you know it is an experiment. And then we have all of our variables, so independent, dependent, and confounding. So the independent is a manipulator. So is a manipulator, can cause changes in the dependent variable. And then the dependent literally depends on the independent. And then we have the confounding, which honestly I love because that's almost like, for the lack of better words, it's almost like a little shit of a brother who's trying to like weasel their way into making your life is just like really, really difficult. It's kind of like if me and you bake a cake and then my oven's different than your oven, but the heat is the same, but for some reason mine just gets hotter and the cake comes out and it's just, raw or it's burnt. And I
trust you to make them.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, but you can find the confounding variable a lot in surveys. So, all right, let's see. Next slide. Measures of central tendency. You want to take a crack at this one, Amy?
Sure. So
right.
measuring central tendency are statistics that basically describe the center of the data set. I like to think of them as like the 3 M's. It's just kind of helpful. So there's the mean, which I think is like very common, like school, like just math class, honestly. So it's that basically the average, like can be used the 2 words interchangeably. So you just add up all the scores and the number of scores in the set. Like if there's 7 scores, you add them all together and then divide them by 7 or whatever the number is. And then there's the median, which is like the midpoint. So you're gonna put all the numbers in order of like least to greatest, and you're gonna like cross out until you reach that middle number. And then if there's 2 numbers, you can just do the average of those 2. And it sounds really complicated explaining it, but it's really not. And then there's the mode, which is just the number that repeats itself the most. This is really the easiest. So it's pretty self-explanatory. So there could be actually more than 1 mode, but if all the numbers are the same, then there's no modes.
Solid. That was solid. All right. Now we're going to move into our Unit 1 MCQ practice test, and wait a little later on, we're going to go into some like tips and tricks on how to answer multiple choice questions to the absolute best of your ability so you can get that 5 on your exam.
So,
all right.
Oh, sorry. I have the cram quiz right here. So if I can just share my screen.
Oh,
Thank you.
jump scare. Oh, faces are just
All right.
up there. Yikes.
Here we go. Ready to go. Let me just mute myself.
Oh, they added music. This is kind of fun.
That is such a vibe.
All right, I'm gonna move us into the wing for stage left. All right. So
There we go.
you can use the QR code or the link. So we're gonna see how many of we can get into this quiz first, and then we'll go into that.
I love the little pop-ups that are coming from the bottom.
That's cute. People are like, it's like Kahoot, it's got me busting the move. I mean, yeah, it's kind of nice.
The music. Yes, it is.
You know, I love to dance, but I just can't dance to save my own life. So.
Me too.
I feel like that's a relatable experience all around, though. So.
Those who can't dance too survivable.
Tough dance survivable. Oh! Yes, there will be a recording available right after this. And you can just access it because it will just pop up right where the screen is. All right. Do you think we're ready, or do you want to wait until a few more?
Someone said they're dancing in my room.
Yeah. The vocals, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That came out of nowhere. Giving Kahoot a run for their money. All right. All right. So why don't we get started? You all can still join later on. All right. So starting off nice and easy. Who conducted the first psychology lab? No, if I were in the chat, I would try very, very hard to trick you all just because, you know, I'm awful like that. I live for the drama. You know, I think it might be Freud. It's got to be Freud. What do you think, Amy?
Definitely Piaget.
Definitely Piaget. All right. All right, let's see. Someone said Elvis. All right. Wilhelm Wundt. You got to say it in that accent or it doesn't count.
The Count Dracula accent.
The Count Dracula accent. Oh my god. All right. Let's see. And in an experimental study of the effects of listening to music on learning listening to music would be the blank variable.
Oh, the music's back.
Music is killing me.
Guys, go with your gut feeling. Like, it's probably right.
I'm just jamming. This is kind of nice.
I love your energy, Yoongi. Please never change.
Oh. Oh. Oh, you know what? Someone said the dancing variable. I love your energy. You're very sweet. You balance out my saltiness because I'm just awful. I got some Elvis Presley fans in the chat.
Really?
All right. I think we're ready to reveal that answer.
Drum roll, please.
Independent. It's beautiful. All right. Studying and interviewing a single serial killer. Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's
In
dark.
depth lead to learn
Morbid.
about all aspects of their lives is an example of and blank. Someone said this music is proving that these hips don't lie.
That's true. I need this music in my life, in my playlist after this.
I wonder what the key phrase was in this question. What do you think it was, Amy?
Should we give them a hint? I would say there's a few keywords actually. I would say something to focus on is all aspects. All can be a clue.
All right, let's reveal that answer. Case
This sounds
study.
really good.
Keyword here, single person. Or I guess in this case, a single serial killer, Hannibal. All right, moving on.
Next one.
Which of the following perspectives focuses on the study of mental processes? I need to think it is, Amy. I'm just bobbing my head, and I know when I look back on this recording, I'm just gonna be like, "What was I doing?"
Oh my god,
Yes,
I forgot it's recorded.
Oh,
Better not
jump
dance. I might
scare.
traumatize the rest of the viewers.
Oh.
Oh, we've got the
All
iconic
right.
emoji. The iconic 5-able pepper.
getting spicy up in here. All right, let's reveal that answer. See, I feel like these are too easy. They really know what's going on here.
Yeah,
All right. A group of friends go shopping together at the mall and spend $43, $47, $36, $32, $55, and $32 respectively. The mode of the group's expenditures is blank.
Oh, Sean's trying to trick the people in the chat.
All right, let's reveal that answer. 32, look at them, they know it.
Yeah, they got this.
Which research method helps reduce error in research?
Last question, guys.
I feel like this one is like interestingly vague.
It's the wording, but
All right, let's see. Random assignment. There you go. All right, that was the end of the quiz. Now, I understand a lot of you are worried because the questions seem a little too easy. What we're doing is just making sure that you get a baseline to apply what you're learning in memorization. But as we go on and the nights get further, especially toward night 5, we're going to make sure they're a little more in depth so we can challenge you and we can make sure that, you know, you can apply all the tips and tricks that you learn to really ace this exam. So don't worry, more's coming.
we got you covered.
All right, let's see. All right. John, are you speaking? I can't hear you. All right. So I think we're moving on to the brief and Q&A. So I'm going to leave that up to Sean and Amy, and then, you know, I will return at some point later on.
Can you hear me now?
There it goes. Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Yuji and Amy, for that awesome review of Unit 1. Now, I think we're actually going to skip the brief Q&A and hop right into multiple choice questions to make sure we stay on track. So feel free to keep those questions coming in the question section, and our wonderful Christina will keep answering them. And me and Zoe are now going to take you guys through me and Amy are going to take you through some multiple choice question tips. Cool. So getting into the exam, you will be asked 100 multiple choice questions, and you have 70 minutes to answer them. So that means you have about 40 seconds to answer each question. So timing is everything. When you're taking those practice College Board tests and you're taking any other practice exam at all, especially this week leading up to the exam, try to keep yourself strictly to that 40-second time limit. Awesome, and then yes, it's going to make up about 2/3 of your grade, with the FRQ making up the other third. You can bounce over to the next slide now. Ooh. Amy, you want to take this one?
All right. So the expectations on the test are pretty straightforward. As concerning vocabulary, they just want you to define and understand these terms, which is essentially the basic knowledge that, you know, we're going to teach you like right now, and especially the practice quiz we just did, and then to apply this knowledge on the actual questions. And then there's some skills on the test. So applying concepts is very important. It makes up a majority of the percentage. And then there's analyzing data and investigating research studies. So these are all very practical things that you're going to see on the questions. And here's the unit weights. So one that we've actually just gone over, it's 10 to 14%. So it is really on the exam, specifically the perspectives. And then there's 2, which is the biological basis of behavior, and 3, sensation and perception, which we're covering tonight. And then there's the next ones we're going to cover over the course of these 5 nights. So there's learning, and then cognitive psych, which is very important. It makes up a huge chunk of the exam, so make sure you encode that information in there.
Yeah, and a super important thing to think about when we're looking at these unit weights is that the units worth more, the units worth 13 to 17%, 10 to 14%, those are going to be the ones you want to know the most specific information about. Those are the ones where they're going to really get into the nitty gritty when asking you questions. Whereas ones that make up less, like sensation and perception and learning, definitely devote study time to them, but think more about bigger themes. The questions that you're going to be asked are more thematic. And kind of with that, when we talked about applying concepts earlier, you're going to be asked to apply a lot more in these units that count for more, which is why we're asking you some of the more like basic level questions, because if you don't know the content, there's no way to apply it. So we first want to make sure you know the content before we challenge you with the applications and subsequent FRQs and MCQs.
Yes, it's very important.
Cool, we can bounce over to the next one now. So yeah, they're going to ask you 3 different kinds of questions, or 3 of the main types of questions will be definition questions, which are very straightforward. They're asking, do you know it or do you not? So an example of that is, which of the following processes occur during flight or fight? And you'll just want to know which of the option choices is the right answer. And really the only way to know the answer to those ones is to know the vocabulary. Cool. Then the second one is scenario questions. These ones are a little bit more difficult than the definition questions, and they're going to ask you to do a lot more of that application piece. So taking what the information in the question, a mock scenario that could happen in everyday life, and showing how do you understand the vocab through that question. So Gabby uses a coin to tighten a screw on a faucet handle. This action shows that Gabby has overcome. A question like that, where they give you a situation, they set the stage, and they're asking you to apply what you know from the vocab to an example that could happen in real life. Which, as we think about anyone who's interested in doing college psychology or going on being psychologists in the future, that's what we care about, is how can we apply phenomena to the real world. Then the third kind of question we'll see is categorizations, which require a lot more brain power and effort. And they're the kind of questions that will ask you, token economies are based on which perspective? A psychologist who cares a lot about learning would most likely subscribe to which of the psychological perspectives. And those are the ones that are really going to challenge you to apply those 8 key perspectives that we learned, that Amy and Yuji did an amazing job of teaching us in the last unit, to all phenomena throughout the unit. So I would definitely spend a lot of time making sure you know those 8 perspectives, because when I took the AP exam in my senior year, they asked a lot of questions about a behavioral psychologist would most likely favor blank kind of therapy. Wilhelm Wundt will most likely subscribes to which set of ideologies, to which you'd have to know what school of thought he subscribes to, and then what that school of thought believes in. Do you want to take this one, Amy?
Yeah, thank you, Sean. So first item on this list is to search for and define keywords in the question, which I think we were actually talking about that before. And basically just look for sort of like possibly questions that are in the answers as well as the actual question, or like if it says cognitive and it has something to do with the brain, you can just sort of link the two together. I don't know if I'm making sense, but then oh, that's actually the next one too. In the answer options, try to define them and match them. And you can also use other questions, like if you've seen a question about this and that perspective, and then you see it later, you can just sort of mentally go back and just check that. And it's really important to get rid of the distractors. So focus on the meaning of the term and understand what it's asking. Like maybe it's not asking you for the meaning, maybe it's asking you for some sort of other application. And focus on like trying to identify negatives too, like if it tells you which one is the least likely or not likely. And then just use honestly logic and reasoning, like common sense. Try to match or sort of like categorize answer options together with the question. And then when all else isn't working, like you're like clueless, which we hope we're not going to be on the exam, but we're going to run into a question like that. You're going to try to make the best educated guess that you can and move on, because time is very important.
Yeah, and you don't get penalized for getting a question wrong. You only get points for getting them right. And that was a great point that you made earlier about like kind of like thinking about the units. Like if the question asks like what is the process to take a memory out of your long-term memory and bring it to the front of your mind, and one of the answer choices is operant conditioning. Well, operant conditioning is part of the learning unit, and memory is the cognitive psychology unit. So operant conditioning is definitely not going to be the answer to that question. And for anyone who was wondering, retrieval is the process. So cool. Let's move on to the next slide. So yeah, you definitely want to discern the kind of question that you're answering. So if you can look at a question and immediately be like, this is an application question, this is a conceptual question, those will be great skills so you'll know what answers to look for. So you definitely want to know the definitions, but it's more important to study using examples to understand the definitions. Because the smallest percent of questions will ask you just to recall definitions or to recognize which answer choice best matches with the word. So those kinds of questions you'll need to know the definitions for, but so many of the questions will ask you to apply it to a scenario to answer what example pertains most to this phenomena. And to do that, you'll want to really understand the concept. And the best way to understand the concept is to understand it through an example. For example, I could tell you that the just world hypothesis is the idea that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to, or that good things should happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. But do I know what that means? If I give you an example, how could you apply the just world phenomena? So for example, if I asked you, Andrew cheated on his test and Andrew got a 65 on his test. Is this an example of, or could you use a just world hypothesis to justify that? Go ahead, drop some answers in the chat. Yes. Yeah, the just world hypothesis is the idea that Andrew did bad on his test because he's a bad person for cheating. So that's an example that you'll want to really be thinking about. What is the phenomena? What's a real life example of it? And how can I apply that to any question on the exam? Cool. Let's jump to the next one. Amy, throw this one over to you.
Okay, so this is basically, this is very basic, but it's important that you know this just to refresh this. So read the question fully and carefully, especially if it's a long application question. Don't just skip to the end. Something that actually, personal experience, I read the question and it was a question about bipolar, and I only read the first part of the question, and I read the part about depression and I put major depressive disorder and I got that question wrong. So please read the question completely, and trust your gut. Don't start changing the answer a bunch. That can mess you up too. And just what we were talking about before, identify the keywords in the question. read all the answer choices too, like which one works the best, because 2 can work, but 1 can like apply more in that situation. And then search for the matching keywords or just look at previous questions to see if they've answered it already.
Yeah, and this is one of the greatest tools you have on the exam is your pencil. Like circle the keywords, underline what's important in the question, make your brain direct all of its attention to what's important, and kind of ignore all the fluff, all the irrelevant stuff. Keywords are going to be everything. If they ask you about cognition, you know the answer is going to be something related to the mind, the cognitive science unit. If they ask you something about learning, you know the answer is going to be in the realm of one of the conditionings. So yeah, just general tips like that are great ways to break down that multiple choice question. Now, I think up next we have a wonderful video from the amazing Yoonji to tell us all about how to identify content and vocab within the multiple choice questions. So I'm going to jump off to the side and let's watch that.
Oh.
A 36-year-old female forgets to take her blood medication, and Ivan Pavlov's dog experiment is a thing that exists. How would the patient's sleep spindles and withdrawal symptoms work together to make chocolate cupcakes?
We've all been in that position before where we get to the AP test, it's super stressful, it's timed, it matters for college, and then we get to a question where we're like, oh my God, I have no idea what any of this means. Lucky for us, there are a few ways that we can mitigate that risk.
The best way is to condense your answer, and the best way to do that is look for the keywords, skip to the end of the question, filter your psychological approaches, and then match your answer.
Okay, Unit 1 of the AP Psych exam is the Foundations of Psychology, and that's weighted 10 to 14% of your entire exam, meaning it's going to show up a lot. So, using this method, you're going to be able to save time, make sure you're not as stressed, and since this is an endurance test, save your energy, and that is critical when taking the AP exam. So, let's try it out.
All right, so let's practice. So, first question says, how would a behaviorist like F.B. Skinner explain how people learn table manners? So I see the keyword here, behaviorist. I see F.B. Skinner. And then I see learn table manners. So right off the bat, I know I'm looking for the behavioral approach and something to do with this guy over here, who is known for classical conditioning. So looking at answer A, I see interpreting events. B, I see reinforcement and punishment. C, I see repressed childhood, unconscious. And then I see brain chemistry and evolutionary forces. And then I see past social events. So I already know that A and E are talking about the cognitive psychology approach. D is the biopsychology approach. C is the psychoanalytic approach. And B is the only one that matches that reinforcement and punishment to B.F. Skinner and pulls from the behavioral vocabulary. So I know it has to be B. All right, next. Oh, look, my Grammarly's getting mad at me. A psychologist who advises a patient to write his depressed thoughts and prescribes an antidepressant medication is using a combination of which of the following perspectives? All right, so I see write, I see prescribes antidepressant medication, and then I see the word combination. So it's really just asking which of the following combinations, like, is this psychologist using? Minus all this stuff, we're just simplifying the question. So we should just know that B is just a silly answer because we're only given one option. And from our keyword combination, we know that that's not going to work. Then we see the keyword right. So automatically we're like, okay, cognitive approach. writing, examining. They're examining their own thinking. From here, you could actually already pick out the answer because only one of them has cognitive in it. But if you're not comfortable and you just want to follow through, so you're like, oh, yeah, I really want to get it right, we looked at the word prescribes, right? Meaning we're looking at the biopsychology perspective because this is a psychoactive medication. This is the only other like biopsychology in here. I don't see it in any other answer. So we know that this is D. We don't even have to look at the other ones. All right. Question 3. Oh, that's funny. Question 3. Which of the following kinds of therapists is more likely to prescribe lithium for a patient diagnosed with bipolar disorder? So let's see. Keywords. Therapist. Kind of therapist. I guess that's a key phrase. We see prescribed. We see lithium. And I'm like, okay, we're looking for a person that's a medical doctor and the ability to prescribe medication. We already know that that is not a psychologist. They cannot do that. They did not attend med school. So the only one in here is B, because they are a psychiatrist. And if you get thrown off by the word clinical, completely understandable. Just remember, psychologists do not prescribe medication. They do not have that ability. So there you go. Got it all right. Good job.
Oh, that's great, Yoongi. You know, it's really helpful to try to remember that in the middle of the AP exam. Oof, yikes. Okay. Been there, done that. I get it. It can seem stressful to try to apply this new strategy on the AP exam, but I'm telling you, a lot of what the AP exam is test-taking anxiety. And being able to have test-taking strategies that are effective and concrete and that you've practiced and you've seen work and they work for you are going to put you miles apart from the average test taker. So what I'm trying to do here is give you confidence in your test-taking abilities so that you can get a 5 on the AP exam.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Yoonji. All right. Now it is time for the best part, an open Q&A. Hit us with all those questions that you got. And if our hosts in the chat want to like take the ones that people are posting and just bump them up on the screen, we can start answering those. All right, I think I saw one question about learning. We'll teach you guys a lot about learning in the later unit. But there are operant conditioning, classical conditioning, and then 2 other kinds of learning, the social learning theory and latent learning. But yes, you'll learn a whole lot more about that tomorrow night with Unit 4.
Zoe put the best idea in the chat, but I think it went away. Take a little stretch while you're thinking about your questions right now. Just like a little lean and, you know, give your brain a little oxygen.
Cool. Should I be memorizing the names of psychologists other than the main ones? No, honestly, you really don't have to. You should know the major VIPs, but it's a lot more important to know their ideas. Now that's not to say don't know any of them. The main ones who connect to major, huge developments you definitely want to know. I would know the Skinner box. I would know Thorndike's cats. I would know Piaget's stages of development. I would know Ash's conformity and Milgram's compliance. So those big players, I know Bunt and James, the structuralists and functionalists. Those are all good people to know. But other than that, it's a lot more important that you know people's ideas.
Yeah, it really is. They're not going to ask you a lot about names of people and like what they're known for. Maybe you'll get like 1 or 2 questions on that. But.
Awesome. Any other questions we want to throw up there? I saw one about structuralism versus functionalism, which I can answer real quick. Structuralism is the idea of what the mind is, whereas functionalism is more the idea of like how the mind works. But yes, confounding variables. Confounding variables is really any outside variable that impacts an experiment. I'm taking a research methods class right now, and one example of this that we've learned was that a psychologist was conducting a study on how music affects how likely someone is to gamble. And let me pose this question to you, and I'll have you guys answer it in the chat. So the psychologist had 2 groups of people come in to do the study. They had a bunch of people come in at 10 a.m. and at 10 a.m. they had that be the group that didn't hear music. So they just were measured how much they gambled with no music at 10 a.m. Then at 4 p.m. they had a second group of people come in, and they had all those people listen to music while they gambled. And also the room that they were in like smelled a lot like smoke. So what would be some potential confounding variables in that situation? Yes, Victoria, I see you in the chat. And Deval, time of day is a confounding variable. You can't assign all of your participants in the control group to one time and all of the participants to another group in a later time. People tend to be a lot more tired in the morning. Maybe how tired they are affected how much they were willing to gamble their money away. Maybe at the end of the day, people were just getting off of work. They just want to relax, chill out, and they just want to have some fun. So they're willing to play for longer. So yeah, that's why random assignment is so important to minimize the confounds. You mix up what people go at what time, and that way time isn't a confounding variable. What else might be a confounding variable? Yeah, Mira, I see you in the chat too. Smoke. Smoke is another confounding variable. Smoke is something that's present a lot in casinos, so maybe it gives more of a casino feel. But yes, the smoke and the time of day are 2 confounds there. They were not things that were foolproof, they were not things that eliminated, and they were things that can significantly distort our results. And I saw somebody ask, what is a confound again? A confound is any variable that really impacts an experiment. It's any outside variable that's going to affect the construct that you're measuring. Cool. I think we can take one more question, maybe. Does anyone have one more question they want to throw up there? This is an awesome question. What is the difference between longitudinal and cross-sectional? Amy, I will throw this one to you if you want to take it. If not, Jenna, I'm happy to throw this one over to you as well, our teacher host.
I can answer it.
Awesome. Yeah, let's pass it over to you, Amy.
So a longitudinal study is a study that's done over a bunch of years, but basically it's with the same group, versus a cross-sectional study is a study of people of different ages and different groups, but all at the same time, all compared with each other. And I think that's basically it.
Awesome. Now I saw
Cross-sectionals
another.
also usually have like elements of longitudinal components as well, but like otherwise, Amy, that was the perfect definition. Great job.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much for taking over that one. Now I saw one other fantastic question in the chat. Can we have a break? And the answer to that is yes. I'm exhausted. Let's come back in 2 minutes and we will talk about the brain, do some neuro. So go ahead, take 2 minutes, stretch it out, listen to some music. I like a little dance party, grab some water, grab some snacks, and I'll see you all back at 8:15.
So our 2-minute break is up. We're going to move on to our next unit, which is Unit 2, Biological Basis of Behavior, which is 8 to 10% of the exam. And this section is going to be run by Jenna and I believe Sean.
Yes, it is. So I hope you all enjoyed your little bio breaks, your brain breaks. You got your food, you got your snacks. Maybe you got your caffeine, if that's what you need. Let's do it. All right. So we are going to hit the biological bases of behavior. Now, I'm going to say that this is my absolute favorite unit. We missed introductions a little bit because I think everything was a little funky with the crowdcast. But I am a biological psychologist. So I absolutely love teaching neuro and talking about all of these different biobases of behavior. So I am thrilled that we are going to be covering this unit. So I've got Sean here with me, and we are going to talk about the biological bases of behavior, which is 8 to 10% of your exam. So let's hit it. Oh, what are we putting? Throwing captions back on? Oh, yeah, we did. Perfect. All right. So when we look at the nervous system, we really want to make sure that we're structuring our understanding according to some type of like really feasible organization. So we've created like two little, so there's this one and then one at the end. So right here, what we're going to do is map out exactly what we're going to learn for our nervous system, and then we'll review it at the end. So with the nervous system, this is comprised into two different components. So the first component, the central nervous system, this is our brain and our spinal cord. This is everything that we have that really is like thinking, doing, our reactions, our, what's that word I'm looking for? Words always escape the tip of my tongue. Reflexes. These are also processed in the central nervous system, in the brain, and the spinal cord. Now, I don't know if Sean disappeared on me, but I can keep rolling. There he is. With our peripheral nervous system. Now, this is broken down into two components. Our peripheral nervous system is literally everything that's not our central nervous system. So everything that's not the brain and the spinal cord, that's the peripheral nervous system. Now we have two components of the peripheral nervous system. One feels and one does. Sean, can you tell me which one feels and senses, and then which one does the activity?
Yeah. The one that does the activity, I believe, is the autonomic nervous system, and then the one that feels is the somatic nervous system.
Yeah, so we also have voluntary and involuntary action in there as well. So when we break down our autonomic nervous system, this is two components. So I know it's getting like this really complex and convoluted organization, but within our peripheral nervous system, we've got those two components, the autonomic versus the somatic. Somebody in the chat just said autonomic equals automatic, and that is perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. So
Ooh.
I don't know why I have a pen. I'm teaching online. I don't need this. With our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Okay, somebody just threw it in the chat. You beat me to it. I was just going to say this, but we have fight or flight versus rest and digest. So one of these systems is really critically important for activating our body. And then the other system is all of those opposite functions. So Sean, tell me a little bit more.
Yeah, with the sympathetic nervous system, that is kind of in charge of being your flight or fight response. Like we were saying earlier, it's in charge of activating your body when it's needed. And it's really important to understand the distinction between the two of those, how the sympathetic nervous system is what brings arousal, and the parasympathetic nervous system is what tames it out. It's what brings you back to your resting state. And especially when we're thinking about the AP exam, that is the most important distinction that you want to know. I know there's like 10 million different nervous systems to learn, but the ones that you really want to know the difference between is the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. For example, if I see a car coming at me in the middle of the road, what nervous system is going to take over? What am I going to feel? What response will there be?
I was reading the chat. Were you asking me or were you asking the chat?
Oh, the chat. Yeah, sorry. Can we?
Okay.
Yeah, why don't we throw that in the chat?
I like that somebody had mentioned in here the difference between afferent and efferent. So afferent, they put efferent equals exit, which is perfect. So it's all of the nerves that are exiting our central nervous system. And then keep in mind that afferent is approach. So if efferent is exiting, afferent is approaching. So, and this is always going to be in relation to our central nervous system. So we actually have more detailed information on all of these components in slides. So rather than just looking at this kind of like structured organization, I think we can dive into those more detailed notes if we're ready.
Let's do it.
Perfect. So just like we mentioned, central nervous system, this is the brain and the spinal cord. That is it. It's just this right down the middle. That's the central nervous system.
Keep it simple.
Everything else, exactly. Everything else is the peripheral nervous system. So when we look at the central nervous system, this is all of the things that make us, you could think about things like consciousness, our experiences, sensation and perception, although a lot of aspects of sensation come from our peripheral nervous system as well. Anything that's complex that makes you feel like yourself, that's our central nervous system. So I think oftentimes, like when it comes to consciousness, the center of consciousness, we feel it in our brain. That's where our eyeballs are. And it just happens to be like, this is where I think I am, right? That's our central nervous system. So our brain, our spinal cord, and everything that's necessary for all of those kind of like critical life functions. Responsible for breathing, responsible for blood pressure, responsible for making sure we eat and we digest and we excrete. All of that is coordinated by our central nervous system.
Cool. And then the peripheral nervous system kind of contains those autonomic and somatic nervous systems we've been talking about earlier. And that's what connects your central nervous system to the rest of your body through these bundles of neurons that we call nerves, and that we break down more in the next slide.
Absolutely. Can we get the next slide? Thank you. All right, somatic nervous system. So we already broke down. We have sensation, we have voluntary movement, and these are going to be split apart. So we have within our somatic nervous system, we've got that voluntary movement and then also that sensation. So with the somatic nervous system, think about somatic as in body. So that's what, literally that's what that means. So when we have somatic, this is going to be in relation to the way that I can conceptualize it is like the exterior portions of our body. So anything that's going to either control our skeletal movement, so our ability to like walk, our ability to sit, or collecting that sensory information from our environment, that's all the somatic nervous system. Whereas the autonomic nervous system is the things that we don't have conscious voluntary control over. So that's going to get broken down into those fight or flight versus rest and digest. Oh wait, can we go back? I was like, yeah, perfect. Sean, do you want to take the autonomic nervous system?
Yeah, so the autonomic nervous system, like you're kind of saying, is what controls all the involuntary processes. So things that keep us alive. It's why we can breathe while we sleep. It's why our heart pumps blood to the rest of our bodies. And its two main responsibilities are being in either a rest or activity state, which is what we talked about a little bit earlier: the rest and digest versus fight or flight, the parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous systems.
So if we have a fight or flight, tell me, you're walking, you're hiking, you see what you think is a snake. What are the systems of your body that begin to activate? And what is it actually doing to your body to make sure that you can flee that snake or fight it if that's what you're trying to do? What systems, I'll throw that to the chat, what systems are actually activating? What physiological processes are occurring when we stumble upon a snake on our hike? I like the amygdala because the amygdala is actually really important for sensing that fear in the first place. So the amygdala being the fear center of the brain, it's what sees that snake as threatening. And it's what says, oh no, I have to do all of these different things. So it's going to activate our hypothalamus, which is then going to activate the pituitary, then the adrenals, all through nerve endings. And when we get that, we see, like we have here in this chat, acetylcholine, that's the huge one. Pupils dilating, that's a massive one. We dilate the pupils so that we can see more, we can take in more information. Less saliva production, higher heart rate. I love these. What are some things that like don't happen? So fight or flight doesn't just activate stuff, it also stops things. So what are some, oh, perfect. Digestion slows. Yeah, absolutely. Endocrine functions, definitely some of our endocrine functions. Yep, digestive, absolutely. So a lot of our reproductive capacities, our digestive capacities, the immune system, I see this one. This is a really interesting one. So with fight or flight, there's like newer research on this that shows that depending on the threat that we experience, our immune system might activate or it might get suppressed. It just depends on the context of the stressor. And I think that that's really fascinating. So stressors that are related to our ability to get sick. So if we have like, I don't know, hurt or injured ourselves, immune system jacks up. If it's a stressor that's like, I have an AP test coming up in 5 days, immune system goes down. Crazy. All right, Sean, take us away.
Sounds good. Yeah. So then we get to the last two, the bottom of the nervous system tree, the sympathetic versus the parasympathetic nervous system. And yeah, like we saw earlier, sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. It's what makes you fight, flight, or freeze in response to stimuli. And it prepares the body for action. It gets the body ready. It's what happens when, as Jenna was saying, you see the snake in the woods. Then what we have naturally, any action, heightened action has to be counteracted by something. We can't live in the state of readiness for action at all times. Otherwise, it would be not a life that I want to live. So then we have the parasympathetic nervous system that returns the body to its resting state. It brings us back to homeostasis. It brings us back to that rest and digest moment. So yeah, let's hop back to one of the examples we were talking about earlier. You're walking across the street and you see a car coming at you. What nervous we talked about earlier? That's the sympathetic nervous system. And then, as Jenna was saying with the snake, we labeled a bunch of things that might happen in response to that. A bunch of different ways our body might change. Then after that, I crossed the street. I didn't get hit by the car. I'm taking deep breaths to calm my body back down. What nervous system is in action then? Let's drop those in the chat if we know.
Somebody had a really wonderful analogy in there too that said parasympathetic is a parachute to slow you down. And I absolutely love that. Yeah, you guys are doing great in the chat here. The parasympathetic nervous system is our rest and digest. It's super important not only for balancing out that fight or flight response that happens, like Sean says, okay, so we don't get hit by that car. We get really scared when it happens, but we are fine. We're perfectly safe now. We've got to calm down. And that parasympathetic nervous system is going to balance all of that activity that had happened from, initiating our fight or flight. The parasympathetic nervous system is when we're like just chilling. So not now, obviously, but when you are like Netflix and chilling, right? That is your parasympathetic nervous system. It is calm. We are, we just ate. We are digesting our food. We're not really doing anything too crazy. This is our parasympathetic. Whereas that sympathetic nervous system is like going wild with any type of threat. And I know somebody says that example hit too close of it being the AP test coming up. I'm so sorry. That is coming up, and I apologize for that reminder. Did I misuse a Gen Z phrase? Was that the problem? I'm getting blown up. I'm so sorry. I'm too millennial.
No, Netflix and chill is just as great as ever. And yeah, it's super important.
Like a Hulu and something now. I don't know.
Hulu and hang. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, it's super duper important to know. And I know what we're giving you today is a lot of information about them. But when you go after this and start thinking about studying, think about these examples that me and Jenna were providing you and how these words, these different nervous systems apply to different things we experience in life. That's going to be at the crux of those conceptual application questions that you'll see. Cool, let's hop over to the next
reversed. Part. I put it in the chat. I said reverse. I take it back. I'm so sorry.
Cool, yeah, let's jump over to the next slide. Not sure who's controlling slides, but
whoever
if we could
is in charge of slides.
Bump it.
The slide lady.
Slides.
The next slide is just it's a graphic as well. Yes, thank you. I see that mouse. Perfect. Thank you. All right. We are comparing the activities of the parasympathetic nervous system to the sympathetic nervous system. Now, I simply cannot see this from the size of this screen.
I think we talked about a lot of the ideas of it, though. So
I'm going to throw this in full. Okay, there we go. I can't see anything that's going on in the chat, but I can see this, the graphic now, the diagram. So what you guys can see here. Oh, no. We're full scrolling now. I guess you guys didn't need to see the graph. That's okay. It's the same thing. It was just a review of what we were talking about. Parasympathetic nervous system is going to balance out the sympathetic nervous system. Somebody wants more challenging stuff. I see you. I hear you. I will make a note of it in my little notebook, and I will get back to you on night 2. I love the pressure. All right. John, hit us with the review of the nervous system.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, so the neurons are the most basic part of our nervous system. They are these specialized cells that allow our body to communicate. So if we want to flip over to the next slide, I believe we have a fun activity where we're going to label it. And
everybody make sure you are in your review packet. If you have not gotten your review packet yet, which is literally, okay, so under our video that's right here, it says AP Psych Cram Hub, slides, review packet, etc. You need to open that and go into your review packet because I spent a little bit of time putting this exact diagram into that review packet for you. So you've got it and you can label it.
Yeah.
Somebody who says they love the singing, you are so welcome. It is part of my personality.
Awesome. Yeah. So I would definitely say this is a trickier part, is remembering the parts of the neuron and what they do. So if you're looking for the more difficult stuff, this is the more difficult stuff. Different parts of the neuron are definitely of interest. So let's go ahead and start labeling it. Take a minute, like 30 seconds maybe, to go through your review packet and see if you can recognize what all of these are pointing to.
Okay, so when we look Did someone just say this review packet changes everything? Reminder, it has been here for you. But if you came in late or anybody else that has come in late and missed it, you just have to, click it right down there, right there, and you're gonna get to it. That review packet is beautiful. So we have the neuron. Somebody says synapse is not part of the neuron. No, technically not. It is something that is created though when two neurons are close together. So we have the top of the neuron. We know, I'm going to tell you though, even though you all say that this is way too easy. So I teach right now, I've been teaching college level intro to psychology, which is literally what this AP test is replacing, right? So many of my students can't do this. So maybe those AP students, you guys are really out here, you're just doing it smarter. I love it. But a lot of times you get to Psych 1000 in college and we don't have this. So we're gonna do it now. AP standards too high. No, you're gonna go into Psych 1000. Well, you're not even gonna take Psych 1000 actually, because you're gonna get a 5 on this AP test, and it's gonna be perfect. And I'm so excited.
Yeah,
absolutely.
When I was taking Psych 1000 too, like I know when we were building these slides, a lot of it was based off of what you teach, what my professors have taught me. So definitely all important stuff. But yeah, let's get into the labeling of it.
Let's do it.
Let's drop what's number 1 in the chat. Take a second. Let's drop number 1 in there. All right. Let's see some number 1s.
I've got it.
All right, let's reveal
We knew it. Easy.
So if you hit the next slide, I believe it should be animated. Yeah, the dendrites.
Perfect.
Awesome. Jenna, do you want to tell us what the dendrites do?
The dendrites receive communication. They are at the very, I guess you could say, the top of the neuron, which is a weird way to think about it, but it is the first part of the neuron that is going to receive information. These can be connected. Well, they're not technically connected. Keep that in mind. There's not a physical connection from dendrite to the other thing, which we'll get to at the end. But it's like a space. It's a space, but I'm going to say connection because it's easier. So our dendrites will connect to another neuron, or even possibly like a sensory cell. So something from our skin, like a pain detector, or something in our ear, like the cilia that are attached within our cochlea. These can receive all of that information. So good on that.
Yeah, and these are the questions that you're definitely going to want to know. These are going to be the bulk of the definition questions. Is what did the different parts of the neurons do? So yeah, number 2. Let's drop number 2 in the chat.
Okay, somebody says for number 4. Those could technically be almost the same.
Oh, perfect. A ton of cell bodies. That's
Love
reveal
it.
number 2.
Love it.
It is the soma, the cell body. Just like somatic nervous system, body.
Absolutely. So it's the terms are completely interchangeable. You could say either, but this is where we hold the nucleus. This is where the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. All of the DNA is in there. Those terms are completely interchangeable, so you could use either.
Perfect.
All right.
Let's do number 3.
Number 3.
Let's see it. Yes, axon.
Easy. Okay, so 4 and 5. Those are, okay, so 4 is the thing that's wrapping around the axon. 5 is the space between, if I'm seeing this correctly. 4 is around, and then 5 is the space. So I see you guys in the comments. I literally cannot change anything immediately. We are all, but I got your notes. We will look into like getting you more challenged next time. I see you, I hear you. I promise you, we will work on it. But there's nothing I can do in this exact moment except move through this content a little bit faster so we can get to the harder stuff sooner.
Yeah, and what we're teaching you right now is like these are the things that are the crux, the main ideas of AP psychology. If you don't understand these main ideas, you will not be able to pass the test. And if you do understand these main ideas and you're able to understand them at an application level, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I promise you, you'll get at least the 3 of you understand all these concepts at the most rudimentary levels.
Let's get 4 and 5 at the same time. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Myelin
Yes.
sheath, nodes of Ranvier. So we have a couple of glial cells that actually make up myelin sheath. Can somebody in the chat tell me, I hope this would be cool, what type of glial cell makes up the myelin sheath within the central nervous system? If you want more challenging, tell me. What is the glial cell that makes up the myelin sheath within the central nervous system? No. I love it. Schwann cells. Amazing. Can anybody tell me the name of the glial cell that makes myelin sheath in the peripheral nervous system? I challenge thee. I want to hear it. Because it's definitely not the Schwann cell for the peripheral nervous system. No, but you guys wanted to know. It's the oligodendrocyte. It is a fun word to say. All right, number 6. Throw it in the chat and tell me what you think. Hey, good job, Tessa. Love it. All right, number 6. And Leia, love it. And I love you, Zoe. Perfect. Great job. Axon terminals. Also, these could be called terminal buttons, axon buttons. There's a lot of different words for these ones, but I believe AP uses terminal buttons. These could also be axon, like terminal nodes, axon nodes. There's a lot of different ways that these could be called. All right. John, take it away.
Yeah, so it's not only important to know what the neuron is, but it's more important to know what it does. So the synapse is the gap between the end of one neuron at its terminal button and the beginning of the next, with where its dendrites are. And what that little space, that little synapse between the two cells does is it enables communication. It's what allows messages to pass from one neuron to another, what allows them to fire and send messages throughout your brain.
Can anybody tell me what is passed within a synapse? What are the chemicals that exist in there? I don't think we have a slide on it. So what exists within that synapse? Love it. Love it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Great job. Name me your favorite neurotransmitter.
And bonus points if you tell us what it does, what its primary thing is.
Even better. Even better. Potassium and sodium are really cool too. Yes, they do technically exist within the synapse, so you are not incorrect. When we look at sodium and potassium, though, that's super important for the action potential and the resting potential. So yeah, fun to remember there. Serotonin, love it. Dopamine, amazing.
GABA is one of my favorites. I love the word.
GABA.
GABA.
Just want to snooze. GABA is a fun word as well. Gamma, I'm not even going to try. It's not in there. I'm not even going to try. All right.
Awesome.
Let's go to the one. Zoe, you cannot be in here with this norepinephrine nonsense. I don't want to hear it. So I have a really great story, and since Zoe brought it up, I'll tell you. When I took AP Psych, my instructor, Professor Quick, he was a wonderful man. I really enjoyed being his student, but I learned incorrectly one thing that follows me to this day. I learned to say norepinephrine as norepinephrine. And I'm telling you, it took me until college to learn that it is not norepinephrine. And that's incredibly embarrassing. And every once in a while, when I still teach, it's coded in there. In my brain, it says norepinephrine, and I have to actively correct myself. Every once in a while when I teach, it still slips out. And my students are like, what?
Do you ever get laughed?
Do I what?
Did they ever laugh at you?
Of course they laugh at me. It's something to laugh at. If anything, it helps you to remember how to spell it. And, I'll take it.
For real.
All right, Sean, tell me about the resting potential.
Yeah, so well, for a neuron to act to send signals to do stuff, it has to be activated. But before that, it lives out a constant state of resting potential until there's some sort of charge that allows it to hit this active state. So resting potential is the standard level that the neuron lives at. It's at rest.
In the chat, what is the general resting potential charge? Now, importantly, this actually varies depending upon the individual neuron that we're looking at, but we have a general expectation of what this resting potential is. So I've got some, oh, perfect. Loving it, living it.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. Negative 70 millivolts. Now, this is the millivoltage that they will tell you is 100% always going to be it, but it's not. Depending on the neuron, it changes, but it's roughly around negative 70 millivolts. Great job, you guys. All right, and then our action potential. Oh, I wanted to remind you that the resting potential should be best considered like a battery. You can think about it as like a readiness potential. It's not technically at rest because the neuron is straight up still doing stuff. It was using energy to ensure that it maintains this negative 70 millivoltage. So you can think about it more like a readiness or a battery. It's prepared to be able to fire at all times. So it spends energy to do that. Okay, our action potential, the big thing, the thing that the neuron, every component of our consciousness, everything that we do, think, say, feel, is coordinated by action potentials. So tell me a little bit more about these.
Yeah, so action potential is the threshold that it's what happens when the neuron reaches a certain threshold of electrical stimulation that allows it to fire. And when the neuron is not achieving this threshold, when it's not there yet, it will not be able to fire. And then once the neuron does reach this threshold, once it does fire its signal, fire its communication, it goes through a refractory period immediately after, which actually means the cell is unable to fire. It can't send any signals, can't send any more messages out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so I saw it a little bit in the chat, so I'll throw out. What is it called? Or I guess what's the term for the voltage? Well, you know what? I need to rephrase this because this is not going to come out right. All right. We have a neuron that fires. It can only fire if a certain threshold is reached. And if that threshold is not reached, then it cannot fire. Tell me what that principle is called. In the chat, AKA also Sean, you all tell me, what is it called when a neuron is unable to fire unless it has received the proper stimulation?
Oh, looks like the chat is killing it. The
Absolutely
all or
killing
nothing
it.
principle.
Wonderful, amazing, beautiful, fantastic, smart people. Amazing. Yeah. Okay. Somebody says it's like the toilet thing. Yeah. The refractory period is much like the toilet. You can flush it, but it's going to take a little bit longer for you to be able to flush it again. That's the refractory period. It's gross. Yeah. All right. Let's do the next one. Perfect. John, you want to walk us through this?
Yeah. Actually, you know what, Jenna? I'll let you take this one. I feel like I talked a lot about it on the last one.
I'm happy to. All right. So I want to label our X and Y axes first. So on our X axis, this is the amount of time. So this is how much time has passed. On the Y axis, we have the millivoltage of the neuron. Okay. So we have at the very beginning, I'm not on sharing my screen right now, so I cannot show you guys where I'm at. But if we look at the very beginning of this chart, we have a neuron that is at rest. It's at negative 70 millivolts. You can see this. We are actually demonstrating quite perfectly with these failed initiations that all or nothing principle. Those failed initiations are signals that come into the neuron that don't actually reach the threshold. So if they're not reaching the threshold, they're just going to dissipate over the neuron and not actually cause an action potential. However, when that threshold is met, you see that massive depolarization. Depolarization is the beginning of our action potential. We reach the peak of the action potential. When that happens, we head into what is called repolarization or hyperpolarization. That's the ending of our action potential. When that happens, we hit that refractory period, as you can see here. That refractory period basically is that time when a neuron cannot fire again. Once that happens, we are going to actively put in energy, actively expend energy in order to get back to our resting potential. What is depolarization and repolarization? Depolarization is the beginning of the action potential. It's kind of just like a complex term that I don't think in AP Psych you really have to know. Yeah. So depolarization is just the start. Repolarization is the end. You'll learn about it if you take Psych 1000 with me, because I love to talk about it, but I don't think it's necessary for me to go into it here. But any other time. All right, let's go to the next one. Perfect.
Sleep. My favorite part of the day. What I'm gonna do right after this also.
Yeah, same. It's
Cool.
late.
So yeah, the first thing we want to pose to you is the question, what is consciousness? Now I want you to take a minute to think about it, drop your answers into the comments, because consciousness is a very intricate, complex, and interesting topic that even I know my professor said he struggles to teach every time, and I've heard just like a lot of professors struggle to teach it because it's so hard to study. There's really no good way to study consciousness, because when someone's unconscious, they're really not being able to respond to you. So it's very hard to study consciousness, especially across different species. There's often a debate of whether animals experience consciousness or not. Do different animals experience consciousness to different degrees? I know that was something I found super interesting in my Psych 101 class.
Yeah,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
I'm seeing some awesome definitions in the chat. Yeah, it's what happens when you're not really things that happen that aren't really aware of, things outside of your conscious control. Jenna, I don't know if you want to add on with how you see consciousness.
Consciousness is actually something I skip teaching because it is so like convoluted.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's really difficult to study, because how does one accurately and with true validity study itself? How do we do that? And that's really difficult. So a lot of the components of consciousness that we actually are able to study are things like sleep and dreaming. We can look at brain waves and neural activity. But really, when we get into the nitty gritty of like, what is consciousness? What is required for us to be aware and for us to exist? That's something I like at this point, I can't even, I got too many things to do on my own to start really investigating that. So it's a hard one.
Yeah, and actually, real quick before we move on to the next slide, I want to draw one distinction. I've seen a few comments about Freud in the chat right now about consciousness. We know Freud
Oh,
loves
yeah.
his unconscious desires and motivations,
Mhm.
but right now what we're focused on is more the biological bases of consciousness.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah, Freud's consciousness is it's something else. But our idea of consciousness now, we're talking about what's going on in the brain, what's happening in the mind, to either have you in a conscious or unconscious state. Which
But
is
look
what we
at
talked
all
about
of that, like, look at all that callback though. They all did so great. Even though that's not exactly what we were talking about right now, you all knew exactly. You're like, I know that keyword. Perfect. Great job.
Freud's favorite word, if you will.
Absolutely.
Specifically with an un before it, unconsciousness.
All right, let's hit it
hop
to
over
the next one.
So yeah, just a couple quick ideas on consciousness. First, we have automatic processing, which is the process that allows information to be collected and saved with little to no effort. It's what brain teams is important. It just is automatically processed into our memory with minimal effort.
That's like if you meet somebody new, or like you have a new, well, what is something that we could automatically process? Like your own, if you get like a haircut and you look at it and you're like, oh, automatically I know I'm processing that. It's like the easy stuff that we pick up on. Is it bright
The color
outside?
of your eyes.
Yeah, the color of somebody's eyes. Is it windy outside? Is it dark? That stuff, is it cold? Is it hot? Is that the stuff, like, that's what we will automatically kind of take in. We ignore other things. So with our selective processing.
Yeah, and then I guess that brings us to our next idea in consciousness, selective processing, which is the ability to focus attention to a single source of information. And for this, we have the example of the cocktail party effect, which is a effect you are going to want to know for the AP exam. That's another one of those really important vocab terms that we talk about all the time. And that's the idea that if I was at a cocktail party, you know, dining on my jumbo shrimp cocktail with my friends, and there's a bunch of noise in the background, we don't process all that background noise. But if I hear my name, I hear the people behind me saying my name, I'm going to tune into that. I'm going to selectively process that information of what I'm hearing. And that's at the crux of the cocktail party effect.
With our selective processing, whose AP Psych teachers showed them the video of the counting basketballs when you were counting how many times the basketball was passed from person to person to person to person, and you missed the biggest thing walk right across your screen? Who else, who saw that? I show it to my students every semester, and they make me literally rewind the video and start it again because they do not believe me. It is so funny. I love it so much. Yes, the gorilla. That is your selective processing.
I've had 2 teachers do that, and I've been duped both times.
Both times?
Both times, yeah. Well, the first one was like general psych, and then a couple months later, I was in a memory class, and never did it come to me. But
I know.
Also,
and he does a little dance.
Yeah, that's also same with the change blindness study, which is super interesting. It's the failure to notice a change in stimulus. And actually, just a fun fact about me. So I took a class called The 7 Sins of Memory, which is an idea publicized by Daniel Schachter. And I actually learned that the original change blindness study occurred on the 14th floor of William James Hall that we had our class in. So it actually, the first change blindness study took place on the 14th floor of some random psychology building at Harvard. And it's super cool to know that I was just in the basement of a building where this amazing study occurred. But I guess to get into
love a good fun fact.
Interesting idea is that when someone was walking, then someone walked between them with like a board, and then the person on the other side of the board like swapped it out, and then the person walking didn't know that the person changed. Yes. And it's different between different age groups too, like different age levels, different factors also determine how likely you are to perceive the change in the person.
Yeah, I've seen a ton of those like that. You guys should definitely look them up because they are really funny. There's a lot of like America's funniest home video type things that are like that too. All right, next. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, then we're gonna talk about the 4/5 different stages of sleep. First stage is the transition between wakefulness and sleep. It's where your body temperature starts to decrease, and what's going on in your brain is you see a lot of the beta waves.
Perfect. All right, we get to stage 2 sleep. This is the stage of sleep where you are in that deepest, or not deepest, but like a beginning into our deep relaxation. Your brain waves at this point are characterized by things called sleep spindles, as well as K complexes. They just look different on an EEG. So we get into that like more deeper relaxation. A lot of the times when people say, so like you can wake somebody up, I'd say you're watching TV and somebody starts falling asleep and you're like, hey, you were falling asleep. And they're like, no, I wasn't. I've been awake the whole time. They were in stage 2. They don't really know, they're not in that deepest stage quite yet. All right, stages 3 and 4.
3 and 4 is where you hit that stage of deep sleep. It's your heart rate and breathing start to slow. You're in deep sleep, and the delta waves are what's going on inside your head.
Absolutely. And then we get into REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement sleep. This is where some researchers say all of our dreaming happens, but then other researchers say that's actually not true. So there's a little bit of nuance in the literature right now about when we dream. But REM sleep is really, your eyes literally are moving super rapidly, and your brain waves actually look a lot like your brain activity does when you're awake, which is really, really cool. So there's a lot of memory consolidation that occurs during REM sleep. That processing of everything that we experienced during the day. But again, research is a little uncertain about whether or not that's where all of our dreaming happens.
And quick fun fact, does anybody know that REM sleep was actually discovered by accident?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I forget what it was. There was like a study going on, and where participants were sleeping, and then the researcher like put the brain like the EEG, I think, on his son's brain, and then yeah, he like noticed that this stage of sleep was happening with the son, and because I think children get into REM sleep quicker than adults do, so none of the adults were in the EEG long enough for the REM sleep to be detected during the study. But then when his son fell into REM sleep, he observed, whoa, this is an interesting thing that we should look at. And
That is
bam,
cool.
REM sleep was born.
I love it. Next slide. Thank you. We are going to go into our Unit 2 practice quiz. So we're getting our little music back, we're getting our dances back, and we are getting our little emojis back. And I couldn't be more thrilled about it. I'm so excited. Let's do it. Zoe, I think you still had them. Perfect. All right, QR code. Oh, I love it. This is just...
I could just listen to this for 3 hours.
I know. This should be my
More
new
quizzes.
studying music. Yeah, this was
All right,
for
let's try
sure a really great idea to add this music. And it's...
Most definitely.
You just can't stop. And the emojis, hit me with the pepper emojis. And then this, and then there's the strong arm. Let's see if we can coordinate. All right, pepper emoji first. Pepper emoji first.
It's just like a crazy influx of pepper emojis right now. I want to see all pepper emojis. Oh yeah, there they are.
I love it. All right, and then the strong arm emoji is my favorite. I do like that one.
Zoe, do you mind dropping the link in the chat as well, just for ease of accessibility? Cool.
Love it, love it.
Feel free to keep hopping on. I do think we're gonna get started though, so we can get through this quiz nice and quick, so we can stay on track with time. What is one direct result of the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system of the autonomic nervous system? Remember, these are the application questions we were talking about.
You have to... I cannot.
I love dancing.
I love it. Remember, there's a difference between that sympathetic and parasympathetic. We are talking about the parasympathetic, so making sure we know exactly which system we are in, which one of these is not like the others.
Cool, let's reveal that answer.
Wonderful and amazing. Okay, so there's a little bit of a skew on this one, but remember, the sympathetic nervous system will activate heart rate. The parasympathetic nervous system will decrease heart rate. There it is, it's back. What is the term used to describe the electrical charge difference between the inside and outside of a neuron, which is necessary for the transmission of signals?
Hitting you with you guys with those trickier questions now.
Yeah.
I know neuro was one
Mad
of
us
the
for
trickiest
things being
units for
too
me.
easy. Here you go.
Neuro was always one of the units that I struggled with.
I absolutely love neuro. But I hate it, but I love it. It's just fascinating.
No, so real.
One of my favorite classes to teach is the biological psychology course, and I just think it's so much fun.
See, whereas I'm dreading taking Introduction to Neuroscience.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be amazing.
All right, let's reveal that answer. Oh no! Wow, you guys asked for harder. We delivered harder.
I'm not so sure that one's accurate though, if I'm being honest. But okay, that's all right. Well, you know what? Let's break that one down next time. And then night 2, I'm going to come back to you with a little bit more in depth on this one.
Actually, yeah.
And we'll review very briefly night 2 so that we don't take up time on it right now. We'll review. Next question. What is the term used to describe the process by which a neuron generates and transmits an electrical signal? We have A, resting potential, B, action potential, C, threshold potential, and D, synaptic transmission. I love this music. Just like on repeat in my head at all times from now through AP Psych test.
And I'm gonna have to ask Amanda what song it is. I want to add this to my playlist.
Right?
All right, let's see that answer.
Perfect.
Action potential.
Love it. Amazing. Wonderful. Smart humans. Number 4.
Ooh. I don't think we broke down to the different stages of NREM and not REM. It's my bad. I was gonna say I don't think we broke down the different stages of REM, but I forgot the N means not REM.
Correct, it does. All right, which stage of sleep is associated with those delta waves? That one is in those slides. Oh, Amanda says it's just a samba mix.
Awesome, let's see it. Yes, deep sleep, third stage.
Good job.
Beautiful.
Good job, good job, good job. It's just like on repeat. Okay, what is I gotta get really close because I'm blind. What is the fatty substance that surrounds and insulates the axon of a neuron, allowing for faster transmission of signals? We talked about this.
It's super important.
We talked about it, even a few terms for this. I told you, I quizzed you a little. Now with this one, something interesting here is happening with these options. There is one more correct answer. One is most correct. But there is one option that might also slightly be correct. But we'll explain it.
Let's see.
All right, let's do it. Beautiful, wonderful.
Yes.
Nobody was tricked. I love it. The only thing I was going to say was that C, glial cell. Remember that the myelin sheath, well, you don't necessarily, but the myelin sheath is made of glial cells.
Yes.
But the correct answer is the myelin sheath. So that is the most
perfect. Which division of the nervous system is responsible for controlling voluntary movements and transmitting sensory information to the brain?
You guys
and
got this.
While we answer this, Jenna, do you mind if I ask you to tell us a little bit about membrane potential? I'm seeing a lot of people asking about that. It seems to be a big point of confusion.
So membrane potential is the charge difference between the inside and the outside of a neuron at any point in time. So that's the membrane potential. The resting potential is when it's at that specific negative 70 millivolts, ready to fire, kind of like battery-like readiness potential type of idea. And then the action potential is the actual firing, transmitting information. But the membrane potential is just, any difference in charge from the inside to the outside.
Thank you so much, Jenna. And with that, let's see the answer to this question. Somatic. Remember, soma, body, the opposite of autonomic. It's not, it's voluntary control, not involuntary control. Yeah.
Perfect.
Good stuff.
Oh, we have more.
Last one.
I feel like
see if we can get 100% right on this one.
What is the term used to describe the junction between two neurons where neurotransmitters are exchanged? I know you guys have this one. I know
you guys got it. We talked about it. We had a whole slide on it.
We absolutely did. And you guys were in the chat telling me about it before we even got to it. So you've got it.
Yeah, Christina, thanks for pointing that out in the chat too. That it's definitely important to focus on action potential versus threshold potential, more so than membrane potential for the exam. Cool. Let's see the answer. The synapse.
Good
Amazing.
job. We have, yeah, very, very few incorrect. You guys did awesome. Great job.
Cool.
Set.
All right. I think we're passing it over to
Do we have an
Amy.
open Q&A on this one?
Oh, yeah. I'm down to do a Q&A.
Let's keep it short. You guys got for maybe 5 minutes we can do brief Q&A. Let's see. And then if you want to, whoever's in the chat, throw them up into the on our screen. While you guys are working on that, I have prepared us with a nightly. I'm so excited for this. A nightly psychology show and tell. Jenna's night 1 show and tell today for psychology is the brain squishy. Don't you love it? I just got this as a gift from a student because our semester just ended. So I got a little brain. It's got a medulla oblongata down here and a little cerebellum. Thrilled. That's our night 1 show and tell.
I'm so jealous.
We got a question. Serotonin versus dopamine. John, do you want to take this one or do you want me to get it?
I'll you.
Okay. So serotonin and dopamine are both neurotransmitters. They're responsible for very different things. Serotonin, you can think of like the regulator of the brain. It is in charge of so many things. It regulates a lot of different functions. Serotonin, I think one of the big things that's really important too is that it's one of the main neurotransmitters targeted in the treatment of depressive disorders. So serotonin and norepinephrine as well are the main targets for treating the symptoms of depressive disorders through medications like SSRIs, for example. Dopamine is our primary reward neurotransmitter. There's a lot of different things dopamine's responsible for, though. So we think about it most easily with regards to our reward systems. Tons of dopamine is released when we do things we like, when we eat sugar, when people gamble, when they're doing things that are fun. Dopamine is going. It's our reward neurotransmitter. But dopamine is also really important for movement. I think we talked about this in our preview recently, but Parkinson's disease is a result of low dopamine deep in the center of the brain. So dopamine's got a lot of really interesting functions. Love it.
Cool. I see another one popping up there. What is the difference between absolute threshold and stimulus threshold? I'll give that one to you again, Jenna. You're the neuro expert over here.
You know what, though? Not me Googling this right now because this is like a really interesting, like, what is the absolute threshold of us? The absolute threshold is like, when it comes to a neuron, it's just like the lowest, or any type of sense, it's like the lowest level of stimulation that it can receive. But I think maybe we're confounding two different subjects. So like when we talk about absolute threshold, typically that's in terms of like sensation and perception. So the lowest thing that you can hear, for example, or if you use 2 pins on the same location, like how far apart can you get them before somebody discovers that they're 2 instead of 1? That's pretty much what we're looking at with that. I was like, you got me all confused because I was like, I don't know. I knew what I knew. Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm seeing another one. What's the difference between unconscious and conscious processing? Oh, and preconscious.
It's actually something we're going to talk about in the, what is it, personality unit, or is it the development unit?
It might be, I'm not sure. I think it might be either personality or motivation. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, we're going to talk, that's all Freud stuff. That's less bio and way more in the Freud unit when we talk about all that.
But for brain purposes, unconscious processing is all the processing that goes on without you like thinking about it and working on it. Conscious processing is what we actively work to think about and encode into our memories.
Perfect. Love it. Are we good? Are we ready to switch it over for unit 3?
I'm ready. Chat, are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
Thumbs up. Awesome job on one of the most difficult units in AP Psychology.
My favorite unit. You guys killed it. You did amazing.
Well, then I think Amy and Yoonji, we have you guys coming up.
I believe it's Zoe and Yugi.
Amy, it's me and you.
Okay, cool.
Working? Okay. So we're gonna actually start with these MCQ tips really quickly, and then we're gonna move into sensation and perception. So we're gonna focus on this right now, and we're gonna do FRQs in the next couple nights. So get ready for that. But we're gonna start with some common mistakes in multiple choice questions. So there are a lot of issues that you can encounter during the multiple choice questions, which is often not allocating enough time or attention to a certain subject, such as not reading through the entire question. This will be touched on in a video. Not reading through all of the answers and picking one of the top ones because you don't read through all of them, which will cause you to lose points. Or missing the negative in a question, like which is not the correct answer for this, or this. And I definitely have seen a lot of questions like that on practice exams. So you really need to read the full question, read all of the answers, and it's really going to help you to focus on getting the answer right. We also have using the wrong strategy when you're not sure of an answer. So there are different types of multiple choice questions which are important to which work with different methods of answering the question, and that's going to be touched on in a couple of minutes about one of the methods. Doubting yourself and changing answers without a valid reason, which goes hand in hand with guessing based off of letter choice. Now, a lot of people will say, if you don't know the answer, just guess C. It's likely to be C. And that's not the right way of thinking. That there's a certain letter that's going to be correct above everything else. It's just not going to happen. That's not how it works. I've gotten a lot of questions right, and I got A, B, D, A. So it has absolutely nothing to do with the letter choice. We're gonna we're not watching the video yet, but allocating too much time to one question. Focusing on time management is really important when it comes to the multiple choice questions, because you only have about 40 seconds for each question, because you have 70 minutes and 100 questions to get through. So we're going to teach you a couple or one of the methods that you can use to get the answer correct real quick. And rushing towards the end of the exam. You realize you've got 12 questions left and you've got 2 minutes. And you're like, oh no. So you just pick a random answer here and there. So we're going to move into a video to talk about the best ways to focus on time management. And Amy here, who I did not let talk, my bad. Apologies. So we're going to go and we're going to watch this video. She's going to give information about time management, the guess and move on method, and going to give you guys a great pep talk because she's just that awesome.
Hello, AP Psychology students, and welcome to Fiveable's Skills MCQ videos. In this video, we are going to be discussing the skill of time management, which depends on several factors, such as the length of the question and the time remaining.
So I'm going to demonstrate the guess, circle, move on method right here. So as we can take a look at the screen, let's read the question. Question number 1. And this is in the Social and Cognitive Factors in Learning quiz from the College Board AP Classroom. Okay, question number 1. Jasmine is worried about an upcoming exam. Which scenario best illustrates emotion-focused coping? So what we're going to do now is we're going to simulate as if we were taking this test right now. Let's go through all the option choices from A to E. A. Jasmine decides it is pointless studying because she thinks her teacher is unfair. B. Jasmine decides to put off going to a party unless she studies for 2 hours. C. Jasmine reaches out to her friends for comfort to reduce her stress. D. Jasmine sets aside an hour each night to study for her exam and goes to the instructor's extra study session. E. Jasmine notices that the best student in the class makes flashcards to study, so she makes flashcards. Now let's say I've read the question completely, I've read the answers completely. I don't know. I have no clue. I'm clueless. Now what I could do, and it's a common mistake that people make, what I could do is spend all my time on this question. Let's analyze this question. Let's go through it step by step. And in an ideal world, we would all love to do that. However, as time is limited, we are using the guess, circle, move on method. So we're going to make an educated guess. As we can see here, we can rule out the what would be the logical, practical options as the question focuses on emotion-focused coping. So we can set aside these two, D and E, which would be the distractor answers. Now we're stuck between 3. Let's say we really don't know now. We've used strategies, we don't know. Let's make an educated guess, which for this question would be A. The others seem the most logical, practical, and this way I am not wasting time. I'm cutting to the chase. There are a bunch of questions to get through in a limited amount of time, so we are going to move on. Now, on the test, it is going to be physical on paper. So you're going to guess, an educated guess after eliminating the distractors. So that would be A. You're going to circle or click, as in this online version, and you're going to move on to the rest of the test. So that was the guess, circle, move on method, which you should definitely use at some points during the test. Hello, so now we're going to be moving on to the length of the time on the test. We just did the length of the questions, so now the length of the time remaining. So basically there are 2 strategies for this, and you can use either one. I personally do recommend the first one, and you'll see why. But you can use whichever one. Remember, this is about what works best for you. And so you know what works best for you. And if you don't, I recommend you experiment with this, take practice tests, practice quizzes, and just generally do what you're comfortable with. This is AP Psychology as well, so apply a lot of these examples to your life, and things will go very smoothly, hopefully. And with us here at Fiveable, we will continue to instill this confidence in you and this knowledge in you. And so this is just a few general strategies that you can use. So the first one of these 2 methods for MCQs is knocking out the easy questions first, just sort of going, okay, I know this one, I know this one, I know this one, and then sort of leaving the harder questions, you know, the longer ones, the application ones, for the end. And this could be actually really advantageous because that means that in case you do run out of time, you know, you've got a lot of questions in your belt versus the other method, which is the opposite, which is knocking out the harder questions first. And this could actually be advantageous as well in different ways because it could help you, you know, knock out the harder questions first, and you could get a bunch of points for the application ones because those are heavy on the test. And so generally it will leave you less time at the end, the crunch time, and less time to check the answers. So I would recommend knocking out the easy ones first. However, what works best for you works best for you. And so, yeah, I mean, whatever you would like is perfect. Breathe. Another just general tip is do not spiral into a panic frenzy. Don't check the time too often. Do check it every once in a while. Do not, if you see that you don't have a lot of time left, do not start rushing through all the answers or checking or breathe in, relax, take your time. You know, the MCQs are also not the only section on the test. Although it is an important section, make sure you take your time on the questions that you know you can get. That's what I would really recommend in general for the entire test. And, you know, breathe in, breathe out. You got this. You got this. You're here at 5able. You're here at the 5 nights. Go. Okay, so this is just going to be a general overview of what we've done / summary, just to make it straightforward. So the most important tip to emphasize is really just keep your head in the game. Don't spend too much time on one question. Don't do that to yourself. Move on. It's not worth it. They're all worth the same in the end, and you do have a very limited amount of time for the amount of questions that you have. So just don't do it. Don't go for it. If you see that you're stuck on one, take an educated guess, circle it, and move on. That's the method that we covered earlier. Please use it at some points during your exam. You will need it, so remember that. Another just general tip is don't check the time too much. This can foster a lot of anxiety in you, especially if you're already prone to it. So do check the time occasionally just to make sure you're using the strategies we're talking about in this video, but just generally don't stress out too much. Don't, on that note, don't go into a panic spiral of I'm just going to check all the answers, just pick a random letter. No, it's breathe in, breathe out. Use the strategies we've talked about. You'll be fine. Have some confidence in yourself. That's a tip that we haven't discussed yet, but it's so important, is having confidence in yourself, and confidence makes it half of the way. You know this. If you don't know it, use your psych brain, use your common sense, your logic to try to figure it out. Just generally try to make the best educated guesses that you possibly can when you do not know it. But you will know a lot of these. You are here, you are at these 5 nights. So just remember to breathe. Just remember to be calm and, you know, live, laugh, love.
So as the wrap up for this skills video, I'm just going to be giving an outro and sort of pep talk about the exam because it is coming very, very soon. And I just want to make sure that everyone is confident in their skills and abilities this far. I want you to use the breathing techniques we've discussed. I want you to tell yourself, give yourself self-affirmations that you're going to be okay, that you got this. I hope you enjoy the image in the background, giving you virtual high fives, virtual hugs. I mean, you got this. Say it to yourself a few times fast. You got this, you got this, you got this. Make it a tongue twister, make it a mnemonic, like you got this. And I just wanted to also share some general tips for the exam and the night before specifically. Don't burden yourself with studying. It's proven that this really just confuses your brain, and since you've been here all these nights anyways, you know the information in your head, so don't busy yourself with trying to study that night before. It is crucial that you get a full night's sleep. Set aside your phone in another room maybe. Tell your family, you know, please just let me sleep through the night, close the door. So do that. Make sure you get a good night's sleep. Recommended is 8 hours. So, you know, try to go for that. The morning of, try to have a good breakfast. Try to generally eat light. That'll help you keep your memory fresh. Just generally healthy foods. And just to sum up, thank you for coming to this skills video and listening and watching this meme and going through all the parts of this video. It really means a lot, and I hope you have a great night. Good luck on the exam, and just look at the background for more reassurance. Bye.
Thank you so much, Amy, for that incredible video. I love your pep talks. So helpful. All right, we are going to move on from here. Brief Q&A. Unfortunately, we do not have time for Q&A, but we are going to move on to Unit 3, Sensation and Perception, which will be led by me and Yoongi, Miss F.B. Skinner herself.
Oh my God. You know, I was so tired. I did
so-
not want to go back and change that. But it's okay. Skinner's my BF, obviously. We're besties.
It's all good. All right, so we're going to start off with sensation, and I'm going to take this slide, and you can take perception. So sensation is all about detecting stimuli and understanding the world around us. It's seeing what you're looking at, sensing what's in front of you. That's what sensation is. And a big part of sensation is transduction, which is the conversion of sensory input into neural impulses and neural messages so that our brains can interpret our sensory information. So any type of sensory receptor is going to take in senses and it's going to bring it up to the brain, and this is converted into a neural message so that your brain knows what you're seeing, what you're smelling, what you're tasting, what you're feeling, everything, what you're hearing. So an example is light waves being converted to neural messages. So when you're looking at something, the light waves that you're seeing, Fernanda, is that a me? So kind. Thank you. So that's that. So the light waves or whatever other sensory information is being converted into a neural message so that our brains can interpret that. We'll move on to the next slide. So what is perception and how does it affect our worldview, our sensation? How is it linked to that? So put your answers in the comments, please. I just love sensation and perception. It is my favorite unit because we did not have a test on that in my class. It was only
that checks out. I was like, you're
it wasn't an actual test. So, got off a little scot-free there. I do know it though.
That's the important part, right?
You bet. Love being qualified. Perception is how our brain interprets sensation, how we interpret sensory information, what we perceive will affect our thoughts, personality. Exactly, these are all correct. So, Yoongi, you want to take this on?
All right, so here we're going to talk about perception a little more in depth. All your answers are just amazing. So we know we have essentially like input, and then we have schemas and intention to changes. And I know that, I don't know how many of you watched the cocktail party effect video, but it was like, there's a whole bunch of noise, everyone's talking at a party, and then all of a sudden you hear your name from across the room and you're like, someone's talking about me. That kind of selective attention. But a lot of what perception is organization. So we have like gestalt, and then figure ground perspectives, and then within that, like the group principles. Does anyone know the group principles? Can you tell me all of them?
We go into the Gestalt principles in a future slide, I think. But it's basically ways of our brains perceiving objects as whole or broken up, usually whole. And
they
this
can't.
knowledge,
Oh no. Oh, there we go.
proximity, similarity, closure, texture, similarity, closure, figure ground. I think the two most known are closure and proximity. These two are, I think, the most important and the most vital. But we're going to go into that soon. Promise. Right. Next slide. Let's do that. Okay. So, might have lost Yoongi.
I'm still here. I'm hanging on by a thread, I promise.
Got it. So here we have sensation versus perception, which is bottom-up versus top-down processing. And so sensation is bottom-up processing. And a way to remember this is that it starts at your senses or your sensory receptors, and this information is moving up your body to your brain. So bottom up versus perception, which is top down. It's moving down in specificity of what you're sensing through your experiences and everything that you already know. So sensation is detecting what we look at versus perception, which is organizing the sensation and sensory information that we're given. So an example, skipped a little too far, but this example we have is snakes. I think this was actually touched on in a different subject by Jenna, maybe. So it's you're walking, you're taking a hike, and you see a snake. So in sensation, your visual receptors detect that a snake is in your path, and you see it, you've visualized it, and you've sensed that there's a snake. So you get scared and you run away. Versus perception, which is adding something to your schema. So after seeing this snake on your path, your brain might perceive anything that resembles a snake, like sticks or trash, snake. And this way, you're going to see a trash bag on the ground, and you're going to look at it and think it's a snake, and you're going to jump up and run away. And that is part of your schema, which is your concept of perception of things. Next slide, we have the Gestalt principles. You want to take this?
All right, so we just touched on this. I asked you guys to answer, at which you did know, so good job on you. Honestly, these are kind of just like the vocabulary terms in depth. So similarity, similar objects that are grouped together. Mostly what the Gestalt is just having a way for your brain to organize visual information and then interpret it and actually construct perceptions. So I guess all of these principles, the way that they work is to make sure we can construct that image and interpret it correctly. And it's all really just organization. Nothing too difficult. Anything you want to add, though?
I don't believe so, except for one thing, which is that another one of these that was not put on here is figure ground, the Gestalt principle for figure ground. And this focuses on how things pop out versus things that are in the background. I don't know if you've seen the wine glass, that there's, a wine glass in a white outline shape, but then on the sides, if you look at it in a different way, you can see it's two faces outlined in black looking at each other. So that is figure ground, that you're seeing one thing popped out from the background versus one thing, pushed in. So we're going to label the eye. We have this labeling right here. So things that we need to label are the iris, the retina, the cornea, the fovea, I believe the lens, the optic disc, and the optic nerve. So I believe this is in your packets, but if you guys want to outline this really quickly, and as we go through each of the labeled parts of the eye, we're going to talk about what each one of them is and how they're important to your vision. So I'm going to give everybody a minute or so to fill that out.
I think one of the...
Go for it.
What'd you say, Jenna?
Yeah, what's up?
No, I was going to say something, but then you were saying something, so go for it.
I was. You definitely have something. You're our AP savior over there. But I think one of the most yes, bow down, bow down. I think one of the most important things that you're gonna pull from this is like the theories of color vision and essentially how all of the parts of the eye come and work together. Um, and for me, they were a little difficult to learn, but I think they will pop up more on the exam.
All right, I hope you've all filled things out. And we're gonna start this. So this is the iris right here, this little area right here. And the iris is the colored part of the eye. It's muscle tissue, and it helps respond to light. So how many of you got that right? I hope some of you. I hope a lot of you. But next one we have is the lens, and the lens is behind the pupil, and it bends the light into a different way as the light enters your eye.
You know, little question. What is that called? There's a vocabulary term for that.
I wonder who knows what it is? In the chat, I'd like to hear your answers.
Yes, Christian. Accommodation. Very good.
Accommodation. Alex Wang asked what the iris does. The iris is what responds to light in your eye. I like all the people who are saying accommodation. Go, you guys. All right. Next up, we've got this piece right here, which is the cornea. Yoongi, would you like to explain what the cornea does?
All right. So it's kind of like a thin tissue that protects the eye, and it bends light to provide focus.
Nice. So knowledgeable, so smart.
Thank you. You're so beautiful.
We have the retina, and the retina projects the image onto your eye so that your brain can perceive it. The retina is very important. It's this yellow piece that goes around the outside of your eye. There we go.
Fun fact, this is where transduction begins to occur.
What'd you say?
I said, fun fact, this is where transduction will begin to occur.
Lovely. I think we talked about that. Maybe.
Did we?
Whatever. All right, so next up we have the fovea, which I think the fovea is the blind spot. Am I correct there?
Yes. Yes, you are.
I knew it. Just needed someone to back me up. So the fovea is this little piece right here. It's your blind spot. So your blind spot is what you can't see. Think of when you're in your car or in someone else's car.
I'm going to interrupt. It's actually, I was listening to the wrong thing. It's the optic nerve is your blind spot. Where the optic nerve exits your retina is your blind spot.
Dang, Jenna. I was feeling so confident.
I'm sorry, I was eating goldfish. I misheard you.
I was eating goldfish. You're so unserious, oh my god. But just, I guess, the fovea is...
Yes. The fovea is the center of
the cones and the rods.
Thank you to everyone in the chat who knows that, because clearly I was wrong. Fovea is the focal point. Wow, that's great. Everyone in the chat, the fovea is not the blind spot. Okay, the fovea is where the highest concentration of cones is. We're going to go into cones next up. Got the optic disc. And what is the optic disc, Yoongi?
I don't like when you do this because you make me panic, and then I'm like, no. I don't know. Why don't you tell me? I want to see. I'm gonna test you right here.
Okay. Okay, sure, I can do that. So the optic disc is, let me think. I know this. It's on the retina, and it has to do with transferring the signals to
You're transferring it
Google
to
search.
Okay.
It's basically where the nerves or the neurons leave the retina. So it was kind of like it's where the blind spot is. So it's like that, the section of the neurons at the very back of the retina that are going to leave it.
Goes into the visual cortex.
Okay.
So we can
And
actually
then
process
right here
that
is the
image.
optic nerve, which holds the optic disc, and that overall is the blind spot. So we have rods and cones. Rods and cones. Would you like to run this slide, Yoongi?
Sure. All right. I can. No problem. So rods, they detect black, white, and gray. And they're about, I think, like 120 million of them in the periphery of the retina. They're more light sensitive, so they actually enable us to see in the dark much better. So we don't, by accidentally go stubbing our toe when you're walking around at night to get a 3 a.m. snack. And they are also necessary for the peripheral vision. Cones are color receptors. There are about 6 million of them, and they're clustered again in our retina, the fovea. They function the best in daylight, so don't go relying on those, at 3 a.m. And they are responsible for helping us like detect those finer details.
Right. Oh, Sean asked a question. Why can dogs see better in the night than humans? Yes, dogs often struggle to see colors. I'd like to see your answers in the chat, but as they're coming in, I'm gonna state the answer because I know this one. So dogs do not have as many cones. They have a lot more rods. So they struggle to see color because of the lesser amount of cones, and they have higher vision, like dark vision perception, because they have more rods. So there you go. Or they are just like that. Yes, dogs are just better. Okay, binocular versus monocular cues. So this is important. Binocular cues are depth cues that depend on the use of both of your eyes, while monocular cues are cues that depend on each eye, respectively. So a couple of binocular cues that are really important are retinal disparity, which is that you can tell the distance of an object from you based on the difference of the image in each eye. Like when you put something in front of your face, I'll put my clip in front of my face and I put it here, that I'm seeing a different image in each eye, and these images come together to tell me where it is and how far away it is from me. And this is also tied into convergence. Everybody here, put your finger in front of your face and move it in slowly towards you. And your eyes are going to follow it, and you're going to feel the muscles tightening on the insides of your eyes. And that's because of convergence, which is that your eyes are pointing inward in order to focus on an object that's closer to your face. All right, I gotta hurry this up. So monocular cues, we have relative height, and this is relative motion, relative height, relative size. This is relative height is perceiving objects higher up, being farther away. Relative motion is, I think it's being that like an object looks like it's in motion as it becomes closer, that it like becomes bigger, that it's moving closer to you.
So relative motion is like when we're in motion. So think like if you're in a car and you're looking out the window, it's the objects we are looking at, like they're moving as well. So
okay, my bad. Interposition is that an object is closer, we perceive an object to be closer than another object if it's blocking this other object. And linear perspective is that if you're standing and you're looking at train tracks or a picture of train tracks and you see that in the distance they're coming together, that's linear perspective, that parallel lines appear to meet in the distance. Practice quiz time. All right, let me move to that really quickly. And I was still on the one from the other time. Let me really quickly move out of that. Who's ready for more music? Our favorite. Okay. Unit 3. The loading. Okay. Here we go. Everybody join. Oh, am I not sharing? Oh, I am sharing. Good.
No, you are. You got it.
All good. I will drop the link in the chat right here. There we go. Okay. The link is in the chat if you want to open that. I'm gonna wait another half a minute or so for people to get in.
I feel like that 3 a.m. snack was way too telling of what I do when I'm not sleeping.
No, when you said that, and I was like, stop calling me out. Ria Patel. So we're moving on a different schedule. That tonight is 1 through 3, tomorrow is 4 and 5, and 6 and 7, and 8 and 9. So Unit 5 will be tomorrow night. Stay tuned. Christina, I believe, is going to be running that. Okay, we've got 10 minutes. Let's go, let's go.
All right, I think we can get started. What do you think, so?
Started. Let's do it. What is top-down processing? Remember our analogies? I'm gonna redrop the quiz link in the chat for anyone who needs it. And I'm just gonna wait until we get to about 80% of people responding. I love this music. So fun.
We appreciate you guys staying with us till, 10 o'clock at night. You're putting in the work and the effort. So.
No. Hopefully no one's falling asleep.
I think we can hit that answer button.
Let's do it. Revealing the answer. D. Nice, we got the majority. We fill in the gaps of what we're sensing. The next highest was we process information in a text from top to bottom. That's just reading it. Come on. All right, moving on to the next question. What is the term for the process by which we organize and interpret sensory information? A, perception, B, sensation, C, transduction, or D, adaptation. Organizing and interpreting. Remember, E words.
I see a lot of people that I forgot. There are completely different time zones as well tuning in. Oof.
God, I forgot that existed for a little bit. No, someone was like, "Oh, it's 7 here," and I'm like,
"Oh,
what?"
no."
I'm like, "Wait, you got like reverse daylight savings?" I've been
Someone's been up till.
Me every day.
God.
Me every day. Actually, I slept so well last night because I was sleeping on my guest room couch.
All right, let's see.
All right, let's reveal the answer. A, perception. Remember, organizing and interpreting sensory information, not receiving it. Okay, next question. What is the cocktail party phenomenon? We talked about this in 2 places. We talked about it in Unit 2 with Sean and Jenna, and we talked about it here. I love this emoji thing. It's just so fun. Keeping me awake. Every time these quizzes were happening, last time, I'm sitting in the wings and I'm just dancing. No, keeping me here, keeping me present. I'm gonna go ahead and reveal the answer. A, the ability of a person to listen to only one person among a crowd or mixture of people and crowds. 94% got that right. Look at you go. Nice. 4, which types of depth cues involves the perception of distance based on the way parallel lines converge in the distance? We just talked about this.
The last thing you just said.
Just talked about it. Your hair looks so nice today, Yoongi.
Thank you. I haven't taken a shower, so I'm glad. That's why I had it in a bun, because I was like, oh, I don't have time for that.
I think I had it in a clip all night, and it was like, hurting the back of my head. Okay,
All right.
120. We're gonna reveal the answer. A, linear perspective. 89% got that right. Look at you guys go. So smart. Right. 5 out of 6. Which Gestalt principle of perception involves the tendency to fill in gaps in incomplete objects to create a complete picture? This was on the Gestalt principle slide. When I learned about the Gestalt principles, we did a lot about figure ground, closure, and proximity. The rest of them we didn't touch on as much, but I made it my mission to know all of them.
All right. Let's see how you guys did.
92. Nice. The answer was closure. Good one. All right, final question. Which type of photoreceptor in the retina is responsible for color vision and is most densely packed in the fovea? You were all saying this right in the chat. Answers are coming in.
All right. You know what? Let's speed run this, shall we?
All right.
Let's give them like 3 seconds.
When it reaches 120.
1, 2, 3, go.
Okay. Cones. 91% got that right. Look at that. Well, I'm glad no one said bipolar cells. That was not correct. Okay. That was great, guys. That's so awesome. So many of you were getting that right. All right. I'm going to pop over to, I believe, we have Q&A. So we don't have time for that.
Before we hit that, there's a survey that's been dropped in the chat that our CEO, Amanda, has posted for us. I think the link's way lost at this point, but if there's a new one, oh, perfect. Amanda just popped it back in there. That's a survey for tonight for feedback so we can improve for you and see how you guys are doing. So make sure you complete that before or as soon as you can. Thank you. And then we'll do, I think we have time for like a very brief Q&A.
Okay, so let's do a really quick Q&A. So any Q&A, let's put on the screen. Do I have to be sharing my screen for that to work?
For the Q&A, I don't think so. You can if you want to. It just says Q&A on it though.
All right, I'll just screen share that while questions go up.
Heck yeah.
And then we're going to be done for the night.
I think we can all hop back in the main stage and go have some fun.
Down.
All right, there we go.
All right. I feel like, is it just me? Do I look that? Oh, okay, everyone else is filling in now. It's like just me was like in the main screen. It was too much. No, she's back. Here we go.
All right.
Questions. Oh yeah, big shout out to Christina who's been answering all these questions tonight. Thank you so much. We truly appreciate you and all the work that you've done.
I think there wanted to be some more explanation on the top-down processing as well as
I put out, it was a silly explanation, but I put an explanation in the Q&A, but very briefly. Bottom up is when we take in information. So it's literally like the signals that come from the environment into your, either your eyeballs or your ears. So let's use an example of your eyes. So your eyeballs, your retina are being hit by light waves at all times. And that's what actually enables us to see. So that is essentially bottom up. So we are gathering information from the environment. We are taking in all of this environmental stimuli, and we are actually putting it into our brain, to put it most simply. The top down processing is when you get those signals and your brain interprets them and it provides meaning to it. So the example that I put in the Q&A is like you see something and what you detect is it's furry, it walks on all fours, it has a long tail. And that, just as a silly example, that's what the bottom up processing has provided to your brain. Your brain then thinks, okay, what's furry, walks on all fours, and has a tail? Could it be a cat? It could be a dog, based off of the information we have already experienced in our life. So I know that cats are furry, they have tails, and they walk on all fours. So I'm going to say it's a cat. That's my schema of what a cat is. So that's top-down processing. When you use your brain to provide meaning to the stimuli that are coming in. Does that make sense? I don't know why I asked you, like you're all going to pop in and be like, yes. That's usually my follow-up at the end of class. Does that make sense? So
the
I
call
hope
and
that did.
response.
I would say that makes sense. But I'm not the general audience. Any other questions people want to?
I see someone saying like neurotransmitters versus hormones, and that is what I call like the difficult pairs. Those are really important to differentiate.
So neurotransmitters and hormones are really, you're exactly right. They are really, really similar. Hormones are always going to be secreted by glands. That's the big difference. Neurotransmitters are never secreted by glands. So that's what is going to kind of like differentiate a hormone, is that it's produced by a gland. Simple as that. We've reached 10 o'clock. We are there. I hope we are all doing well after night one. We are so excited to see you again for night two. You guys have been a wonderful crowd. And we absolutely loved being here for 3 hours tonight. And we have so many more coming up the rest of this week. And you guys are going to do great on your AP test. I just know it. Good job. Thank you.
Ready for coming.
All right, get some sleep, or I guess for some of you, get ready to get up or go back to sleep. I don't know. We'll see you tomorrow.